Hello everyone, today I'm working on a 28-inch Skeleta doll and making her to look like Emily from the movie Corpse Bride. Here I'm showing a little bit about how I used a second doll for some parts, and using a heat tool and an X-Acto knife, I cut off the leg, and I inserted a wooden dowel to each end, glued it in for additional stability, and then I added some epoxy sculpt for the knee. After that I sanded it all down. For the face, I'm starting with some acetone to remove the factory paint. It's a little more difficult to remove from this doll than your typical Monster High dolls because of the type of material it is. It's not the usual vinyl. It's a harder plastic. So I just had to sand it down afterwards. So I added some super glue to the eyes because I didn't want the mechanism to work. And then I added this epoxy sculpt and let it dry overnight before sanding it down. There were some seams around the face that I wanted to make sure to get rid of, so I used a couple different kinds of grit of sandpaper, finishing with the finest grit, and sanded down the entire face. After sanding it down and washing it with soap and water, I added 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear. Well, I also went to the mechanism on the back of the head. I just didn't want to take any chances that it would actually work and maybe break the eyes, so I just added some super glue there as well. Using an airbrush, I painted some of the areas that I wanted to look like skin, and left the chest piece exposed a little bit because on her dress there's a hole that you can see through to the rib cage, and it worked perfectly for that. So just starting out with my Derwent watercolor pencils to add the shape of the eye, and then going in with my pan pastels to add the shading. This took several layers of the blues around the eyes to get it to blend right. I had to seal it with Mr. Super Clear several times in between. And just keep blending and blending and blending and blending. So I'm alternating between the pan pastels and the watercolor pencils to blend in the lips. Also use some colorless blender just to give like a little highlight to the bottom lip. While I'm doing that, I'll go ahead and tell you these dolls are not reroutable as far as I could do. Someone else may have figured out a way, but I did remove the scalp to the other 28-inch doll just to see if it was possible, but it almost ruined the scalp actually cutting it out. So to remove the hair, it was just, I think it would have really ruined the scalp of the doll if I tried to take out the hair. So instead I just cut it super short and created a wig for her. I used a really thick yarn for her hair. In the movie it looks like she has yarn hair, so I decided to go with that instead of like synthetic or nylon. So I added her dimples with the watercolor pencil and then blended them out with some pan pastel. And I didn't show how I replaced the forearm, but I had to do a little bit of sculpting, and because the other 28-inch doll that I was using, the arm was a little bit of a different shape, but I managed to get it so it still bends, and I just replaced the forearm. So on the side of her cheek, she has this little area that you can see through to her teeth. So using watercolor pencil, I drew that out and did a little bit of shading with the pan pastel. And just kind of dabbed at it with the pan pastel to give it that like rotting, decayed look. And did the same around her chest. I just put 2 dots in her eyes to measure out where I wanted the eyes to look. On this one, I wanted them to look to the upper left. And also, I measured out her eyebrows with 1 dot where I wanted it to start and a dot where I wanted them to finish, and then colored them in. So at the end, I'll show some pictures of her finished look. I'm pretty happy the way she turned out. She'll be available for sale at the Mad Monster Party in Charlotte, North Carolina in February. And if she doesn't sell at that convention, she'll be available for sale on my website, or on my Etsy site. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.